There is this new show out there called Blue Eye Samurai on Netflix. People are comparing it to the next arcane. And I'm like, hold up a second. Okay, I'll go and watch it. And what I was presented with was John Wick, but with swords. And it's a female protagonist that is posing as a male. And there's a lot of transgender vibes, and there's a lot of really cool themes that go into there with being a demon to society because of her racially mixed shenanigans. And everybody refers to this character as he, but this character is actually clearly straight. They just have to hide their identity as a male so that they can escape the female patriarchy. Um, no, the female cultures that the patriarchy puts them through, where they have to be. It's either like if you're a nobleman in this Asian culture, you have to um, you have to sell yourself on the streets as a woman, or you have to sell you have to submit to like the will of your married spouse, that you don't get to choose, and then you have to have your teeth blackened and all of that. And it was like there were some strong things about this show. There were strong things there, but here's the key part: I was not very emotionally invested in any of them like the way I was with Arcane. There was a lot of filler moments in this show. There was a lot of um action shots with the camera where it's just like kind of orbiting around the character, and it's not communicating anything with us or trying to like follow the action that's happening on screen for the journey. It was just like these action shots that would come out of nowhere and be, "Ooh, look at me, I'm cool." And it was like, I don't get it. And then there was the part where the character was writing on her skin, and it was supposed to be looked at as like a sexual thing, and she was doing it in the nude, and it was like, there. It was just kind of there. It was supposed to be part of her character arc, transitioning into like a better person that valued more the people that were around her. And then at the end of the season, she just kind of, yeah, spoilers by the way, she just kind of pretended it didn't fucking happen. The character arc might as well have not have been there. So she writes on her skin, and then like in the very next scene, it's not there no more. The writing is completely gone. She's washed all the ink off, and she doesn't look any different. Quite in fact, she puts on her cape and her hat and her glasses, and she just kind of goes back to being the exact same person visually that she was at the very start of the show, showing us zero transformation whatsoever. That was one of the flaws in the writing that made me go like, this show is not on par with Arcane at all. At all. Um so yeah, it wasn't a great show. Oh, and okay, here's this other part that was really, it really bothered me. Spoilers again. The ending scenes, the ending part of the show. The final fights with the villain, and the villain himself as well. Just like, the villain did not captivate me. He was not as interesting after he just kind of started being very flat. He was like interesting at first when he was like not worried whatsoever about our main protagonist busting through his base like it was some kind of like Castlevania dungeon. And he's like, "Oh, it's okay. I don't care about the samurai. I have guns." I'm bringing a sword to a gunfight, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's pretty interesting, actually." the fact that he was taking advantage of the fact that they did not want technology and they were rejecting technology, or didn't have that technology yet, I believe. Though other people were saying that it was because they reject technology, but I didn't actually see any of those themes in the show. It just kind of looked to me like uh, another culture with higher technology is attacking with technology that this culture doesn't seem to have. So I was like, okay, whatever. But it got very weak, because at the end it was like literally this: the bad guys start marching into like this Asian empire town, and they just shoot at everything in their path, and they walk straight into like it was drawn out for the longest time. The longest time, these guys are just shooting everything in their path and keep walking. Shoot everything in their path and keep walking. Shoot everything in their path. This one guy survives. The main villain pulls a gun from one of his guards, finishes the guy, and then they keep walking. And it was just there was no, like, it was trying to be tense by drawing it out. It was trying to be tense, but like there was some other stuff that was going on with like the main character that was trying to like save her not friends by bringing them into like a well to meet up with her other friend who didn't actually end up staying there and got pulled off by the guy that the main character has sexual tensions with. And then not they they end up warning these people who all get killed anyway. They literally camp out at like the center of like where the people are going to attack to, until he opens the door and starts like slowly killing people one by one. And then there was this one guy who unnecessarily, needlessly, out of nowhere was like overly dramatic and cut his stomach open, or opened his stomach as they call it apparently. What was the emotional thing there? What was the character development? What was the challenges there? Was there an arc? Was there a show of an arc? I mean, there kind of was, because the arc of the main character was supposed to be that she started to value the people around her a little bit more, but then it was like this continuous like, no, we're not friends. I know, but I'm protecting you now. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. It was I didn't feel emotionally invested in it. And then there was like the princess that had like this father figure apart from her father, who she had some strong moments here, and I really liked him. The princess was actually one of the more interesting parts of the show, apart from the actual main character, who was supposed to be like the super conflicted individual with the more interesting stuff. But I was more interested and invested in the princess and what was going on with her than what was going on with the actual freaking Blue Eye Samurai, who I still don't remember the name of, because and if I can't remember names, it's probably a bad thing, but it's also probably a normal thing, because I can never remember names, because I'm super bad with names as a person IRL. This princess was being forced to marry somebody she really didn't want to marry, because she thought that this person was a brute, because of the way that this person she was supposed to marry's father at first had presented himself, and looked like their culture was super forceful and super mean and super rapey. But then when she actually gets to know the guy and actually talks to the guy for the first time, she actually realizes that he is a super timid dude with a stutter that is not as forcing. He is not as forceful or controlling as like he was perceived to be. Quite in fact, we very rarely get to see this character that she's supposed to be marrying, until she busts open a door and was like, "What the fuck? Why are you killing my birdie friends, making me eat them, and then presenting me with two more like it's a fucking like? And he was like, it was supposed to be an apology, and it was like, oh, okay, I see. Um, and then we realize he's actually a pretty decent guy. And then she wants to stay with him and like take advantage of him, as like her character arc had kind of been building to that point where it was like, yes, this is going to be your life. No, it's not. Yes, it is. But you showed us at the brothel that you're good, damn good, in fact, at taking advantage of men to get what you want. And because of that, she was able to seduce her married spouse, and she was starting to like actually kick in and take advantage of the situation. She's actually super rich. She's got a lot of money. She ended up going to the brothel where she had her character arc, and giving those people at the brothel money. And one of the people at the brothel had actually encountered the main villain, whose name I believe was actually Elijah, a British man, who planned on attacking her palace with rifles, guns, that technology that we were talking about before that was super advanced. And yeah, she didn't, she goes to her father with this other sex worker, and they get down and try to talk to their father. They actually bow down to him, and they're like, wait, we're about to be attacked. We're under severe siege in a second here. And he's like, who else did you tell about this? And he takes the sex worker and he throws her out the window. And it was like, oh, he's behind all of it. And he locks his daughter in a dungeon and keeps trying to tell her, you need to trust me. You won't be in this marriage anymore. Like I told you endlessly that this is not going to be as bad as you think it is. And you're only breathing because I allow it. After she like keeps telling him, no, I keep trying to take control of my life and you keep taking it away. Blah, blah, blah. Well, it was never said though, but you know that's what she keeps trying for. And then her father figure, other father figure, character that has been kind of guiding her like a mother figure instead throughout the majority of her life, and actually giving her proper guidance and teaching her things and all of that, comes in, pulls a sword on his own master, the princess's father, the emperor, and he's like, I think it was actually the shogun, I believe, I don't remember. But he pulls a sword on him and he's like, you have been terrible to this girl, and I'm freeing her now from the dungeon that you were locking her in. And he's like, treachery, or whatever. Like, this scene was powerful. I'll give it that. But the things that were supposed to be like the super big, emotional, impactful scenes that were supposed to be the ones I was emotionally invested in. This father figure, other father figure acting as a mother figure that I won't remember the name of, he actually dies in the last episode. And he gets shot once and he just kind of like kills over and dies. And so she sits there and she's mourning over him, and then her ex-boyfriend that she was pulled away from for this assigned marriage, he finally shows up and they finally get a chance to talk to each other. And he's like, get him away from this, we can get away, and I don't want to be great anymore, I want to be happy. And then she gets up and she's like, I don't want to be happy, I want to be great. It was so weak. It was so weak. It wasn't interesting. It was weak. Okay, I mean, it was almost interesting, but it was mostly weak. Because, like, we didn't really get to have, like, we understand what's going on there. She's been getting set up to that point, but I wasn't emotionally invested in the scene because that specific dialogue that went on there was more telly. It was too loud about the what it was trying to say. So the dialogue kind of failed that moment there. Um, and that was actually one of the themes of the overall show, because there was another character who wanted to be great, and he didn't have any hands. He keeps falling around the main character. Um, and so yeah, it was a weak show. I believe like the dialogue was one of its weakest parts, and then one of the other weak part about the show was the camera movement at some times, where it was just kind of unnecessarily doing this pan shot that wasn't trying to show us anything. It was literally just there because it looks cool. And then fight scenes also. The fight scenes at some times in the show were super pretty. They were super gorgeous. They were super satisfying to watch. But they dragged out for a super long time, and there was no narrative thing, anything that was happening whatsoever. And then when it was a narrative thing that was happening at the same time, it was during this scene where there was like three different things going on at the same time, and it keeps switching. It keeps switching back and forth between all these three things. There was a metaphorical puppet show that was kind of like showing her backstory in a symbolic way, and then there was a fight scene. And yeah, okay, puppet show, her backstory, and the fight scene. All three of these were being switched back and forth too. And at one point in the puppet show, like they switched her gender and made it like super confusing. Like who is metaphorically representing who? I don't know. But then like they kind of communicated that, but it was still kind of confusing. Um, and then there was like this symbol that kept coming in the puppet show that was like, my purpose, the phoenix. Ah! But it kept interrupting the fight scene and dragging it on for like the longest time, and I hated it. It was so bad. The fight scene itself was actually the cool part that I was invested in, but it kept interrupting it with her spoopy love failed marriage. It was bad. The timing on that couldn't have been worse. Like the way that they communicated it was really bad. I feel like it could have been probably communicated at another time in the show, but like every time like the character was taking a hit and getting knocked out, she was going back into this fucking backstory and flashback. It was like some kind of dream or a nightmare. She gets stabbed and runs away and leaves the guy alive, and then she goes and hurts for a while, and for some reason the guy, they didn't pursue her and try to chase her. He actually went after the sex workers that were in the brothel that were originally his target, because he was supposed to be killing them because they were the ones that were actually like hiring the hit on the rest of the brothel. And this was supposed to be like the super big scene where she was going out and she was killing all of the bad guys in their town, that was like the super predatory protectors that were like protecting but not actually protecting, which I have seen before in a very good show that actually did this well properly in season 1 or 2, I believe, in this other show, Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you know what that is, it's like, oh, for superly cool the way they actually pulled that off. But in this case, it was like a super big army of unnecessary individuals that had a whole bunch of like Wolverine claws, and they were like stabbing and killing people and opening their throats with like these swipey whatevers, and it just kind of didn't work because the flashbacks drew out the fight scene for way too fucking long. Like if you were to cut out all of the backstory stuff that was happening in that scene, it would have been so much better. There was this ability that the character demonstrated that she has, where like she unleashes her true power by taking the weighted shackles off of herself, and then she becomes like stronger and faster because she has like the weight taken off of her. In this case though, what she does is she takes these shackles and she puts them on her sword to turn her sword into like this spear thing, because she turns the weight into like longer handles for her super cool sword, and it was actually really cool because she would be on the ground and she would be spinning her spear blade thing and chopping people's legs and swiping at them while she was like doing like this break dance move on the ground while she was like spinning and cutting people. It was super fun to watch, yes, but it kept being interrupted by flashback backstory every time the character got hurt. I swear the character got stabbed like 3 or 4 times, and then she got crushed by a door at one point. And every time this happens, puppet show, backstory, puppet show, fight. The fight was cool. It was amazing. And then at the end of the fight, after defending all of these people, there's the princess who is running away from her assigned marriage, has her father's samurai looking for her, and at the end of the fight, her father's samurai magically show up. And they take the princess. And everybody's expecting the main character to save the princess. And she just sits there and doesn't do anything. And the main character's assistant is like mad at her, and he's like, I don't want to be with you anymore. You're not an honorable warrior. You didn't save the people you were supposed to. And he takes off his bell that was like his assigned thing. He's like, if you ever take that off, you are stepping down from your post. And he takes it off as a means of stepping off from his post, and he hands it to her, and he walks away. And he just kind of leaves her behind, and he's like, you're not an honorable, you're not samurai, you're no samurai. It was weak. It was supposed to be a setup scene, and it was a setup scene, and it came back later. But it was just kind of like, eh. Why? Because the protagonist was supposed to... The protagonist had this whole theme where she was a demon. Because she's a racially mixed person in Japanese society. She was an Asian person racially mixed with a white person, and demon! She's a demon! And, like, there was a character at one point that literally saw her as a demon and that needed to be taken out, to be killed. And it was just kind of like, you go through this whole point where she keeps being told, you're a monster, you're a monster, you're a monster. But then she just kind of, like, proves everybody right. And then she has her character arc scene, right? Where she's supposed to change. They're supposed to change. And then she sets the entire empire on fire. Everybody dies. What the hell? Oh, that fell. Okay. And, like, the villain pointed it out to her as, like, you just, set an entire empire on fire just to get to me. At the cost of me. And she's like, oh. And then he picks her up and he starts trying to crush her. And then he finds out her secret after he pulls her in close like that. Oh, you're actually a woman. And then she magically escapes his grasp after he talks some shit on her and insults her. And she slams her knee into his face a few times. And then he's defeated. Well, he's still standing. He's still standing. He's still able to fight against her while she has a knife in his neck. He still could have pushed her away. Hello? But he was defeated. Defeated! No longer dangerous. He was like this super big British guy that was supposed to be this massive impending threat. And they did him so poorly. At the key moments where he was supposed to be threatening, he just wasn't. He was just... They kept using strangling and throwing her around as like what he did, because he's this big, strong, burly guy, and she's this weak little meek character that's just really quick and nimble. and he was trying to break her in that way. And apparently, the only way they know how to make a strong character take out a smaller person is by getting them to strangle and pick them up and avoid doing the Hulk and Loki where I suppose, but I didn't like it because it just kind of felt weak. Not once in the fight did he use the rifle because the main character took it away from him and tried to use it like a sword. And he broke the rifle instead of take it from her in the way that he most definitely could have because of how big he was. So poorly done. And then, like, she's supposed to go back to her friend who was waiting for her, the guy without the hands. And she didn't go back. She goes on a ship, takes the main villain with her, and goes to England, I suppose. They didn't actually communicate that. And at the end of the show, they do the panning camera shot while she's on the boat, looking out into the distance. And I'm like, why? You're not communicating anything with this camera shot. What do you think? One Piece, the live action, did it better. And so did Pirates. Because they were communicating something for the first time. But I suppose it wasn't as bad because, like, they were communicating that she was on a boat with the pan shot at that point, and that it was like her final sequence. It was okay there, I suppose, now that I think about it, but the villain wasn't dangerous in that fight like he was supposed to be. The final encounter with her was like, it was weak. It wasn't. There was more that could have come out of that. They could have used her ability better. They could have shown her using the shackle ability again. They could have shown her doing something new that wasn't setting the Empire on fire. They didn't. There wasn't a big, shocking new thing that came out of the character because of her development. Her friends were not there the way that they should have been. Friends that are not actually friends. One of them is actually the betrothed to that princess character I won't shut up about because her story was better. Yeah, the princess and her ex, the main character, has sexual tensions with this character that was supposed to be with the princess, because, and they've communicated that specifically, and there were some cute moments between them where this ex character keeps being like, I need to fight you and kill you, whereas she's like, I kind of like this guy. But it didn't say that. There was like some visual stuff in her head that communicated with us at a brothel when she was being asked, like, what do you desire? And it kind of shows back to when she was doing this wrestling fight with like that ex character. And you really go like, oh, okay, there's tension between them. And then later on they do it again. And they're doing that. She actually sat on top of his pelvis, and it was like, oh, tension. and he's looking at her. I don't think he ever figured out that she was not a man. Even at that part. Which was super fucking weird. That was supposed to be a sexually tense part, but he didn't know that she was not a man, which could communicate that he's actually bi, but I don't know. That was supposed to be like one of those scenes where it was like super great intense, where it was like, oh yeah, he's gonna like think she's trans or whatever, or something like that. I don't get it. Oh well. But yeah, that part, it was like kind of, it didn't work because it was like, what? But he doesn't know. He doesn't know that she's into him. And then he pushes, no, 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 no. She gets off of him being like, oh, I think he found out. I think he knows. And then she does this thing that she's been doing the entire scene. And it was supposed to be part of her character arc scene where she's supposed to be valuing the people around her. And she tells him at the first opportunity, like after this tension, the sexual tension part, that she had left she had left his wife, her ex betrothed, his princess, to be taken by his father's units, that she had run out into them in the first place. And then the sexual tension is completely sliced all over again. And he goes, I hate you, I'm gonna kill you, and he walks away, and it was like, ugh. And in the final fight scene, he takes the guy that doesn't have any hands with him into combat. And they're like, what would the main character do? She would be stupid enough to walk through the main door. So you know what they do? They go through the main door, and then they go through another door. And then they're like, oh, wait, no, we surrender. We have a message for the what was it called? The person in charge here, the authority, the emperor, whatever. And then they stop fighting him, and they didn't kill him like they were supposed to. And then they find out that he was supposed to be a loyal samurai to that clan, which he was. And then they get the warning in, but it was just kind of like that moment was a little bit, it was weak. If he truly was a samurai to that clan too, he could have actually walked through the front door being like, hey, I am one of you. I've been away for a little while. They should have recognized him. They should know who he is based on like his skill set. And the way that people had looked up to him at the beginning of the show, but he goes and starts killing his own people, and then is all surprised when they start attacking him, and was, hey, poorly done. Overall, my thoughts on this show were, it wasn't the worst thing I have ever seen, but it was poorly made. Poorly made. Like the animation that sometimes was outstanding. It was good. But they were trying to do the Spider-Verse style with like the outlines on everybody and making them look 2D, but there were some shots where those outlines straight up weren't there, and I noticed them. I was like, whoa, 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 he's 3D now. Why is he 3D? And then I make the realization they were always 3D. It's just they look more 3D in that shot because the 2D outlines weren't there anymore. But that being said, the show was okay. I enjoyed a lot of it. The hooks were working for me. The hooks were there. There in fact was a really cool dungeon fight scene where the it wasn't interrupted by flashbacks or other stuff that was going on. But it was literally just the fighting. And then we would, I mean, between the fight scenes, we would run into like, it would cut to like the villain and be like, oh, she won't get past the next trap. Oh, she got past that trap. She won't get past the next trap. Or that next trap. It's like, oh, well, then I suppose you can send a giant. She got past all of the other shit. And then she gets past the giant. And then it was boring. Oh, she won't do this, gets past this. Oh, but it won't be this and that, it gets past this and that. It shows up in the main room where they're hiding out on the top floor, and then she gets shot. And instead of fighting and killing him, she jumps out the window and get saved by the guy that she had left earlier that had removed from her post. There was more that could have been done with that character, by the way. The handless character, the guy that didn't have any hands, there's more that could have been done with him. But, like, after that part, where he came back, he stopped cooking. The thing that was, like, see, useful. All of that stuff where he was trying to be loyal and useful and all of that, it all stopped. Because after that, he was like, I don't like you, and now I'm being loyal to, like, your mentor, samurai guy, the blacksmith. And there's just... The character stopped being interesting altogether. No more interesting handless dude that was supposed to have involvement and do stuff and be useful and break our expectations as, like, a dude who doesn't have any hands. He just... Boop. His entire purpose just kind of, like, fell off the edge and didn't come back. At that point, it was just like, I don't like you, and now I'm following this person around, and it was all just treachery from him. And just, yeah. No more development from this character. That was his final thing, was, I'm not being interesting anymore because I hate everybody now. So, yeah. Blue Eye Samurai is not the next Arcane. The style that they did it in was not new and amazing. It looked bland, it looked boring, it looked dumb, it didn't sell me well. There were cool visual parts, but I didn't like the style that they were doing it in, most especially because of those certain few shots that were in there that were like kind of like, that doesn't look right when the lighting disappeared. Overall, like, it's being hyped up way too much. Like, people think it's amazing, but it's not amazing. Because not once did I feel teary-eyed throughout any of it, whereas Arcane did do that. Arcane did make me emotionally invested to the point where I wanted to, like, get my eyes watery. Watching the show again is not something I feel like doing, but with Arcane, I did feel like watching it again. With Blue Eye Samurai, I don't want to go around telling everybody, look how cool the show is. Whereas with Arcane, I did want to do that because of how good it was. So, they didn't present any cool ideas there. Oh, no. They did present cool ideas, they just executed them poorly. I feel like that was, like, the main thing with the show. All of their good ideas were poorly executed. The concept itself was great. The fact that it was an animated show, I mean, it could have been live action. Honestly, it could have worked like that because they didn't use the animation palette to, like, do anything super cool or interesting. All the time. I mean, they had some scenes where, like, they would do some mind-bendy stuff, like when she got drugged by the fucking monkeys in the dungeon area. The dungeon area did use the animation palette actually properly, but the rest of the show fell off and just kind of didn't do anything well after that. I mean, like, yeah, the use of CGI in a live action would have been a lot of work, but then, like, no, I mean, not just the use of CGI, but also, like, set building. But, like, because set building digitally is easier than set building physically, I suppose. But physically building sets is cooler, actually. Because then you're not just CGIing everything. But I just didn't like... I didn't like the show. I didn't like the show because it did not make me feel anything. It was stale, and it was bland, and it was boring. So,